Welcome back to What Arty Noobs with General Disturbance. This is the Type 5 Heavy, the Tier 10 Japanese heavy tank. It's located on the north spawn of Overlord and it's under the command of marke12. Well, you've seen him in action in this tank before because we did another video on him on the Karenia map, this time round on Overlord. Let's see how he gets on in this battle. Well, as I may have mentioned before, this tank is a variant design of the OI. Yes, the Tier 6 Japanese heavy tank spawned a whole load of other designs, and this was one of the ones they came up with, the Type 5. It's got a very heavy gun. It's either got a 14cm or a 152mm gun. It's very powerful. Capable of doing 600 alpha, and it will penetrate through 257mm of armor if it can, well, if it can get through the armor. Of course, obviously that's subject to RNG. Now its reload time is normally 16.4 seconds. Marke's got it down to 16.6. This tank is mainly famous for duping other tanks out of existence in one fell swoop, which is why it became so popular when it first came out. Everybody wanted to play the Japanese super heavies. The weight of the tank is 160 tons, so it's not the heaviest tank in the game, but it does have the second highest hit pool in the game, which actually makes it quite useful, because it means you can take a lot of damage from the enemy and still keep trucking along. Okay, first targets come to sight is an ISM. It's a tier 10 game with tier 8 tanks in it. Say ISM, I think that was actually an IS3, not an ISM, but let's have a look. Okay, we've got a Borsi over there. He's dialing in, he's changing his ammo, changing it to premium HE, and look at that, 862 hit points of damage. Yes, it was an ISM actually that he was looking at, not the tier 8. Okay, that Borsig is feeling distinctly unhealthy now, but he's having to poke out if he wants to get a shot, and that's the end of his game. 2 shots and he's out. This is what this tank is famous for, the ability to wipe out an enemy tank just like that. Bang, it's gone. And it means you have a very brief game, but you burn very brightly when you do. That's a line from Blade Runner, isn't it? I'm thinking about Roy here. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it is definitely Blade Runner that I'm referring to. Okay, Conqueror. You could probably plant a round right onto the top of the vehicle. Even those shields will not prevent him from, the burst shields, won't prevent him from actually taking a substantial hit if a round lands on top of him. But notice how Marke was very careful there not to fire because the guy was pulling back quickly. Now the enemy team do have their own Type 5 heavy engaged in this battle. Unfortunately, it appears that we're not facing him at the moment. And I'm wondering where he is because he's not showing on the minimap at all. He may be an AFK. Well, the Conqueror's starting to push. He's trying to assert his position up here. And this time round he is going to take some damage. And it didn't pen. It didn't get through. The other worrying thing is that we're facing a 60 TP, the Polish tier 10. And that's got a absolutely devastating 152mm gun. Yep, 753, and we bounced the round that came from him, and finally the enemy Type 5 heavies turned up, and with one shot he takes out our IS3. Now he's staying there for the moment because we're facing 4 tanks actually, technically. But there goes, the Type 5 takes 632 off that one, and I think the 60 TP has seen his moment has arrived to push forward, and it might be for Marke's interest to actually get that 60 TP between him and the Type 5 on the enemy team. So the closer he gets to the enemy, the more difficult it gets for the enemy to do damage without actually incurring losses themselves. And he's being punctured. And he rams the Conqueror, but he blasts the ISM out of existence. And despite the fact that the Type 5 is still in the neighborhood, he's not actually attacking Marky. So Marky's going to have a go on this Conqueror now, as soon as he loads. And he fires one into the front plate, but it doesn't pen. He should have aimed for the turret, which is weaker. The Type 5's been wiped out. The enemy Type 5's gone. In fact, it now looks like the team are asserting dominance because they have the cliffs. They've cleared the field. And there goes the 60 TP taken out by RE50M. The Conqueror is about to get a wake-up call now. He's trying to raise his gun to block the shot, but he won't block this because when it hits him, it will be devastating. And it is. He's gone, which means there's only one enemy left. It's a K91 PT, so Marky was saved by his team because he was having to take on 5 tanks simultaneously, and he was holding them up and surviving all those shots because he has a very high hit pool. I should say hit point pool. Oh, look at that 53 TP slid down the cliff because he wants to get to the action, but it's too late because the enemy K91 is dead. And that is the end of the game, and he's still alive. Only just. Well, if you watched the previous battle, you will know that marke12 didn't expect to win the last game on Karelia because he thought that he was going to get wiped out, and he did get wiped out, but his team still won the game because their Wizzy 111 Model 5A capped out. In this battle, he was taking on 5 enemies simultaneously, and whilst he was doing that, his team were clearing the fields of enemy tanks, and I think the reason that happened is because most of the enemy heavy tanks were actually down on the beach, and that was their big mistake because they left all the mediums and all the light tanks up in the field, and they all got wiped out. So it wasn't long before Marky's team came down to the cliff edge and started shooting down on the enemy tanks that were sitting down here that Marky was trying to fend off. And he did a masterful job trying to fend them off because he was being attacked from every direction. Unfortunately, some of his shots didn't go where he wanted them to go, and he would have earned more hit points, but for the fact, obviously, that he just didn't pen some of the enemy shots. But the enemy certainly put a lot of shots into him, and most of them did actually bounce, or he managed to get he managed to absorb their damage and just stay alive long enough for his team to help him out. He says how did I survive? I have no clue. Yeah, I think it was down to the fact in the end that the enemy were focusing on you, and you were almost exclusively, your teammates just vaporized around you, the ones that were down there, and you just managed to keep fending off their shots for as long as you could. Let's have a look at team score. Well, we can see that the highest damage in the game was actually done by Marky. He got 4,860 hit points of damage. Second highest damage, the K91 PT on the enemy team, 3,130 to him. Third highest damage was the 60 TP on his own team at 2,774. When it came to kills, it was shared between Marky, the Striv 1030, and the K91 PT on the enemy team. So 3 players managed 3 kills each. When it came to base XP, it was actually the Object 274 on his own team who did better. 1,119 went to him, 1,094 went to the Type 5 Heavy. I think the reason the 274 did so well was because he's lower tier and he managed to get a lot of damage against higher tier opponents, and as a consequence he earned more XP in the process. 10 shots fired, 10 direct hits on the enemy, 8 penetrations. Yeah, that one shot that was very annoying was the one he fired at the front plate of the Conqueror. If he'd actually re-aimed it at the turret of the Conqueror, I'm pretty sure it would have gone through because it's fairly weak armor on the turret, but it's fairly thick armor on the upper plate, and that's where he aimed it after the Conqueror moved. 4,860 hit points of damage, of which 1,100 broke more than 300 meters. He survived 13 hits from the enemy, 5 penetrations, 8 non-penetrations, and 3,700 hit points of damage blocked by armor. 1 enemy vehicle was spotted, 5 enemy vehicles were damaged, 3 killed, 195 hit points of damage assistance. On a free-to-play account, he earned 45,755 credits from the game and auto repair, ammunition, resupply, consumables. And yes, it was consumables that cost him, I think, in this one, because although he was having to use some premium ammo, he actually ended up with a small loss of 23,412 credits overall. 1,094 base XP, 10,876 from personal missions payout, and took away 11,970 experience points altogether. Yes, I think this one was a pretty good game in terms of him just trying to hold out and survive as long as he could. I think that Type 5 heavy on the enemy team made a big error not going after Marky and making sure that Marky was dead. He just drove past and carried on, leaving Marky to handle the other enemy tanks, the 60 TP, the Conqueror. Marky was able to take out the Conqueror and he got the Borsig, and of course he got the ISM. He did do some damage to the other tanks as well, got some hefty damage out of them to enable him to get the highest damage in the game, but he didn't get a high caliber on this occasion simply because he didn't get didn't get 20%. I didn't actually mention his scores at the start. He actually got a first class tanker, shell proof, bruiser medal, fire for effects. He got a Spartan because, of course, he blocked a non-penetrating shot when he had less than 10% of his hit points left. And he did block the most damage in the game with that steel wall. So it just goes to show this tank is really tough and can take damage and can deal it out as well. And he survived by the skin of his teeth, you could say, in this battle. So that's another Type 5 heavy game. We've got more heavy tank battles coming up for you on the channel. And yeah, Marky's been very busy recently. He sent me in a load of replays, but please be patient if you have sent replays in, because I have to try and get to them one at a time. And remember, I'm handling 2 channels, not 1, 2. So on an average basis, I'm actually probably, most days, I'm loading something like 20 battles or 20 replays overall, not 20, I'd say. It's closer to 10 a day, which is far more than most of the other content creators manage to do. So please be patient. If you enjoyed that replay, please give this video a like, do subscribe to our channel, leave a little comment down below because it feeds the algorithm. And please do remember, we've got a second channel called The General where you can watch great replays without having to listen to me prattling on in the background. Thanks for watching.